All right, welcome to the 5M grind. Harris, what's up, man?
Nothing much. What's up with you?
It's good. It's good. Can't complain. Can't believe August is almost over. September is here.
August is over.
Yeah. 2021. I swear, 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
It just seems like both of the years went by so quickly.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because we've been working from home, so every day is almost all the same, and it all blends into one thing.
Yeah. But I think also if you've had a busy year, depending on what you're doing, I think time just flies by much faster.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you've been up to things.
Yeah, no, it's interesting for sure. Any plans for the fall? I guess as 2021 wraps up. You got anything?
Like personal plans?
Personal plans, business plans?
Business plans, I think we're going to be coming out. I'm excited for this fall.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that has been in the works for the past year or so.
Yep.
That, God willing, is going to be coming out this fall.
Mm-hmm.
Just our program, stuff that we've been programming, stuff that we've been just working on, marketing, a lot of the stuff that's happening in the firm. It's like, the thing is that with any business, when you see like a really good marketing campaign, really good feature, whatever it is that comes out, right?
Yeah.
Service offering, it's been with the company for some time before it actually gets to the public. So that runway, you're solving problems, you're trying to figure out what's right, what's wrong, you're testing, you're doing a lot of things. And it's kind of been like that for us for certain services, certain offerings for the past 18 months, I'd like to say.
Mm-hmm.
And God willing, we're excited that in the next few months we're going to be kind of launching some really interesting things.
Nice.
What about you?
Yeah, same. Honestly, quite excited. Vertical CPA.
Yeah.
We're going to be we're going to be doing quite a few things as well, just in terms of marketing, webinars. I want to create content for the accounting firm as well, just videos about accounting questions that people have. So yeah, I'll be doing that, creating content for the firm, et cetera, et cetera. But okay, so for this week's podcast, I wanted to talk about a topic that I've been giving some thinking as I'm launching, I'm working on my accounting firm, you're working in your law firm, and that's the idea about what the difference is between a generalist and a specialist. And I wanted to cover the following 4 questions. What's the difference between someone that we call a generalist and then a specialist? Are most entrepreneurs generalists or specialists? Would you become a specialist in a field early on in your career? And last but not least, what are the benefits of becoming a specialist? So when we ask that first question, what the difference is between a generalist and a specialist, what comes to mind for you? What's the difference between the two in your opinion?
Generalist would probably be somebody who is working at least, okay, so right away when you say generalist and specialist, I look at law firms.
Okay, yeah.
So that's just my frame of reference. And some law firms, for example, will only specialize in one particular area of law. Yeah. Where other law firms or even lawyers may have a few different areas that they're practicing in. So specialist is somebody only doing one. The perceived, I guess, difference is that when somebody's doing only one, they would be much better at that one. Yeah. Than a generalist who's kind of working at a lot of things.
Correct. Yeah, because you have like law firms that just do family law. Yeah. So they just do divorce, etc. You wouldn't go to them to get a patent. Yeah. You'd go to another firm. Yeah. Yep. Right? Okay, so yeah, for me, very similar to what you just said, generalist versus specialist. I think for smaller businesses in general, because you're going to be going to a smaller accounting firm, they tend to be a bit more of a generalist. Like, for example, my firm, I exclusively cater to a lot of startup businesses, e-commerce businesses. When they come to me, they're looking for tax advice for their entire business, right? I can't tell them that, guys, no, I just specialize in GST and HST, right? Because they need help across the board in everything. While when you go to a bigger firm, though, like you go to a KPMG, and I remember when I used to work there, there's an entire floor dedicated to just indirect tax, so GST and HST, right? And that tends to help bigger companies Because when a big company has a GST issue, it's a few $1 million, right? While it's a small startup that has an HST issue, it's like $5 or something like that. So the scope is very different. Another example I'll use about this whole difference between a generalist and a specialist is when I worked at BMO in the investment industry, like you used to talk to a lot, I used to talk to a lot of clients, and I used to categorize them into buckets as well, that this is a generalist investor, this is a specialist investor. And what we mean by that is you have investors who invest in all kinds of stocks, so any stock, right? They're more generalists because they'll look at any opportunity. But then there are investors who specifically invest in just tech or specifically invest in just oil and gas. So you would call those specialist investors. So that's essentially, I think, what the difference is between a generalist and a specialist. Your firm, as it stands today, would you say you're more of a generalist or a specialist?
So we take on cases. I mean, you could tell me. We take on cases that are in corporate law, family law. We will do. We've done wills and estates. We do real estate law. Certain laws we don't touch, right? Like injury, we don't touch. We don't touch patent law. So those are things that we're not kind of going into too deeply. But these other ones are the ones that we're looking at. Having said that, you could say a disproportionate amount of our revenues currently is generated through real estate law. And that's where currently all of our resources to expand and be known is kind of concentrated at.
Yeah.
So I would say we are generalists in the S that we can practice in a few different areas, but specialists in what we're focusing in on our resources to streamline to kind of get the volume of business in as of now.
Yeah, I'd say my accounting firm, Vertical CPA, same thing. So we specialize in certain clients. So we go after startups and e-commerce businesses. However, the way we cater to them is in a generalist fashion. So we address all of the tax and accounting issues they have, but we certainly specialize in certain industries. So that's that. Do you think there's a benefit to specialization? I wanted to cover this later in the podcast, but I think it'd be appropriate now too, just in terms of your firm. Is there, like, do you brand yourself as the premier real estate law firm of whatever, Toronto?
I personally don't think there's a benefit, to be honest.
Right.
I would want to be the law firm where somebody comes in and you're not just getting real estate done. You could get your wills done. You could do whatever, and you get like the proper advice. So that's something that I personally am somebody who would want multiple service offerings for the clients. Yeah. Because once you build a relationship with a firm, the firm knows you, they've seen enough of your work, they've got more insight into you as a person, and then they can give you better solutions as to what you should be doing in the future. Having said that, we do focus in on one just because it's better to kind of focus your I guess not to say attack, but it is an attack because when you're like doing like any kind of business, you are going up against competitors, you're going up against a lot of people, and you have to have resources to advertise your firm in a particular area. And the reason why I would pick a particular area is because it's better to have your resources towards one as opposed to like you stretch yourself out thin and then you collapse. The other thing is that the way we got into a more generalist approach was not overnight. We didn't just kind of get up and say, okay, well, this is what we're going to do, and this is what, like, we want, like, our firm to, like, do, like, look at all these practice areas. It's more like we got into real estate, focus on that. There's a decent amount of volume that we took in. We got experience in that, so we got really well. But after that, a while, you're not really learning anything new because you've seen a lot of it. You've seen enough, and you know how to behave in different environments. So then you start picking up different areas of law because you constantly want to be growing. So then you can move into family. And once you kind of look at that, and you're like, okay, this is how this industry operates, you can move into corporate. Corporate was the easiest because, like, just I've been in corporate for the longest. Yeah. But it's like it's over time that we became generalist. in that these practice areas in themselves, people have subspecialties. Like corporate law, people have specialty just for like shareholder issues and stuff like that, or shareholder lawsuits. Some people have it in management. Some people have it in contracts, in vendor contracts, in like whatever it is. So even in corporate law or any other stuff, some lawyers will super specialize. I would say that the reason why those lawyers do that is not necessarily, I mean, there is something that you gain from that experience of staying in that field, and you learn and you specialize and you get to know it inside out. But I feel like after some point, you're done learning. But that's the thing, though. Sometimes people just don't want to learn more in another field. It's not that they can't, but they're like, all right, if I just get my time is spent on this particular type of problem, solving the same problem every day, it's fine, because I don't have to really worry about learning something new and figuring things out.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Would you say, question number 2 then, are most entrepreneurs generalists, or would you say they're specialists?
I think starting off, you have to be a generalist.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was going to say the same. It's impossible to specialize that early, especially as an entrepreneur. Yeah. I was actually reading a book recently. It was, the book is called That'll Never Work. It's one of the co-founders of Netflix, so Mark Randolph. He essentially wrote the story about how Netflix came into being. And he says that in the very beginning, when you're sort of starting a new company, a lot of the people that you hire, they tend to be hardworking, awesome, etc. But, you know, when you're a startup, you can't hire somebody to just do one job. You kind of need to be a jack of all trades in the very beginning. A lot of your team will work on marketing. They'll also work on finance all at the same time. So you kind of need these people who are really hard workers, really passionate about the cause, and passionate about the problem you're trying to solve, but they're generalists. They're willing to do a few things all at the same time. And then he talks about once the company matures, however, you know, you reach a stage where then the organization changes its structure and the way it is. Then you're sort of hiring very specialized folks. So then you're hiring, you know, a specific marketing person to just target digital, right? A specialist, because you're reaching a certain size. And it's true with most organizations as well. Once you become really big, you need to hire specialists because you need to be able to focus on something. Specialists are really good at helping you scale your business, right? Because they're just good at that one thing, and they repeat it, and do it again, and they become awesome at it. But in the very beginning, you can't have a specialist. You need to be able to be somebody who's very
I couldn't agree more, because I think about it, especially as our firm is taking on more individuals, and as we are trying to bring in expertise in different areas, right? Whereas before you can hire, we may be thinking of hiring somebody, an external firm for marketing. Now we want to bring that talent in-house.
Yeah.
Right? Before we want to hire an external for our tech development, we want to then maybe think about bringing it in-house. So there's a lot of things that you're bringing in-house, but then the issue becomes exactly what you're saying. Like, I need a graphic designer. Does our firm have like so much work that this graphic designer is going to be working 40 hours a week?
Yeah.
A law firm doesn't, right? How many times are we going to redo our website? What are we like? There may be a lot of work in the beginning to like refine everything, but then in the long run, how much work is that person doing? Not a lot. So then you're thinking, okay, well, if you want a graphic designer, then the problem becomes, what are traits or abilities of graphic designers that are not about graphic designing, but like other tasks around that this role could fill. That it is practical to ask us for this individual who's coming in and doing graphic designing to do. We can't ask them to do anything. They can't do bookkeeping. They can't do any kind of legal work, right? They'd have to focus in on that. They can't program anything. So they have to focus in on the graphic designing. But we'd have to figure out what kind of, and then to go out and find that talent is a whole different story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So true.
So yeah, 100%. Like, there's just no way when you're firm starting off, you could like find somebody to specialize. But as entrepreneurs, back to like the original question, you can't specialize, man. Like,
you can't. I was gonna say, because eventually, like, even if you look at like Mark Zuckerberg, let's take him as an example, right? He's the CEO of Facebook. But that doesn't mean Zuckerberg is possibly the best coder in his company. I'm sure there's somebody in his company who is much better at coding than he is. But I think that's the point. A CEO isn't supposed to be the best at everything. They're just supposed to understand how all the pieces fit together and make them fit together. But you could hire somebody who's a specialist in a particular field who's actually better than you. And that's your job as a CEO, right? Like eventually the person that you hire for a particular, I don't know, let's take even your law firm as an example. Like whoever it is that's doing intake, for example, eventually they could become faster and better at it than you could. And that's the whole point. I don't think that's a bad thing. You as an entrepreneur, that's not your job to specialize in it. If it's for someone else to become really good at it and to drive efficiency.
I think that's what entrepreneurs have an issue with as their business grows. As you get further and further away from that final, like you start off doing everything and you're overwhelmed, then you hire somebody. But then if you're doing it right and you're hiring more people, you're getting further and further away from your customers and you're focusing increasingly on your employees.
Your team.
Right, in your team. And so then now you have to you're not necessarily, I would say you are making decisions, but you're not at the same time because you don't know what's going on. You're actually facilitating your employees, right, or management make the right decisions. But they make the decisions, not you. Right. So often enough, even now, like I'm like, all right, when somebody comes to me and it's like, okay, well, what do I do here? I'm like, what do you think is the right answer? You go do that. Right. And it's not just like, hey, if you mess up, it's your fault. It's more like I expect you to understand all the variables here, make this decision yourself and bring to me what you think is right. And the reason I do that increasingly is also because I don't like if you want to grow, you need to have the right people there. You need to have accountability, but you also need to empower the people that you're working with to make their own decisions so that you can focus in on the right stuff.
No, absolutely. It's so interesting. Such an interesting thing. So going to question number 3 then. If you're early in your career, would you become a specialist? Like going back to my own career as an example, I started working in audit, which is actually a very specific area of the broader accounting field. You're focusing just on audit. It's very specialized. And then I specialized in an industry at that too, audit for financial institutions. Looking back, I don't know. Like I think that was a bit early to specialize in because I didn't know what I really wanted to do. I would have preferred some sort of more of a generalist role or even some sort of a rotational program. I understand a lot of banks and companies have that, right? They rotate a lot of new hires in different departments so they can figure out which one they like and then pick that one. I tend to find that to be much better because you get a flavor of everything and then you can specialize in one thing. But what are your thoughts on that? Would you specialize early on in your career or do you think not so much?
I mean, each has its like ups and downs, benefits, pros and cons. I would say.
But given your personality,
because I would not want to specialize.
I
would want to generalize. There's no way I would be able to. I would get bored really quickly. I know that when I started, my first job was at Mercedes, and we did a few different things. Even though it's kind of mostly in the finance strategy department, but we did look at we had exposure to accounting. We had exposure to marketing. We had exposure to product planning, all that stuff. And frankly speaking, when I was done, I would try to knock on the CFO's door and try to see what he's doing. So I was inquisitive, and I wanted to learn, and that inquisitiveness really paid off later on because I was able to even though there wasn't things that I completely understood at the time, I understand now. But I had seen them, you know what I mean? But at the same time, the reason why I would say specialty has its own benefits is because you learn if you specialize, and I'm not saying specialize in the most mundane task, but it has to have some kind of level of complexity to it. But you learn discipline, right? Because working is not always fun. Working is not always entertaining. So you're able to focus in on what matters and look at what you feel something like, for example, like if you're doing the same task 100 times a day, you discipline your mind to really focus in on that task, right? And not overlooking anything, but then keep working at it. If you're starting your own business, that's incredibly important because not everything's going to be fun. If you're looking for something that's always like, oh my God, it makes me feel good, you're going to be in trouble, right? So it's like, and certain times, like even with individuals, like when they don't like something, they like to close their eyes and pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're specializing, sometimes to that is really good. Also, I think that when you specialize, and this is kind of where it really kind of benefits people, is that when you think you're not learning, you're actually learning.
Yeah.
And you find this out later on. Now, you could be spending day after day, you think you're doing the same thing. That's only because in the beginning you may have learned a little bit to kind of do the task, but then you feel like nothing is going on. Really, stuff is going on in your mind, right? But you will figure it out at a later stage. What I'm trying to say is that, like, I think it's Robert Greene has a book on mastery and stuff like that, and even Malcolm Gladwell talks about his 10,000 hours.
Yeah,
it's when you're learning even when you're not learning, right? And people who are dabblers and stuff like that, they're like, only when it's entertaining they'll do the task, but they'll never become a master. To become a master at something, right? It could be a pianist, it could be a tennis player, you could be a basketball player, right? Like Kobe used to throw how many shots before every game?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it was the same shot over and over. You're throwing the same shot. You're throwing a ball in a hoop over and over and over again. Michael Jordan used to work out and then go practice again because now his body is strong or whatever, and they're throwing. He's throwing the ball in the hoop. That's it, right?
Yeah.
And it's easy to look at them and be like, "Whoa, that is so amazing!" Right? What they're doing, but it's repetition.
Yeah.
They've got so much muscle memory. They got so much other stuff that it's through repetition, through that mundane task, that they were able to master it.
Yeah. No, it's so true. Yeah, you said a lot there, a lot to unpack, for sure. I think, but very similar to you, going back to the questions, would I become a specialist early in my career? I think early in your career, you want to be trying to be a generalist because you're still quite young. You're 22. You're trying to figure out what you want to do in your career and in your life. So it's hard to pick one field and then just stick to it. It's nice to be more of a generalist. And looking back at my journey, I mean, I've held a few jobs. Like I tried accounting, I tried capital markets and tech now. And I think if you just zoom out even and look at my career, yes, I've held quite a few roles, but I think I've specialized in one field, that's finance and accounting. That is my specialty. I understand it, which is why I can sort of stay in it. And nobody can question whether I know finance and accounting because that's the only thing I've done for the past decade.
Credibility.
Right? Exactly. So it really adds to that. I think so. Generalist in the very beginning, and then I would specialize. I do caution against some people, and what some people tend to do, they just focus on the next shiny thing. Yeah. They jump from one thing to another, and they're always after the shiny thing. And I think that is an issue because you do want to focus on one thing and become really good at it. Yeah. There's a lot of value in that. Right?
No, 100% agree. And that's what I kind of meant when, like, being able to learn early on how to have that patience to see something through.
Yeah.
Because a lot of time people will not, being able to, let me rephrase that. Not only see something through, but be able to be present while you're doing it. Because when you're present and you have an aware mind, even though you've done this for 1,000,000 times, you're still analyzing what you're doing. That's something that needs to be trained because, you, like you said, you don't want to be bored and be like, okay, well, let me go to the next shiny thing. And then you find a justification. Yeah. Whereas that didn't interest me, or that wasn't something that I I'm good at, or whatever that reason is. There's a lot of reasons that people just kind of have when in reality, it's more often than not, maybe a lack of work ethic. And discipline to kind of see it through. Yeah. Right. So you definitely should have that ability to kind of, that's why it's kind of like a dicey kind of generalist, specialist kind of conversation, just because you can't be one or the other, especially like, for example, a startup. I would say when you're starting your business, you have to be a generalist in that you need to know accounting, right? Even if you hire other professionals, you need to be able to look at your financial statements and know where business is going.
Yeah.
Right. You need to have some kind of legal knowledge, right? You need to have some kind of marketing knowledge. You need to have some kind of sales knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. You need to have some of these, and obviously you're going to try to get other people that are assisting, right? But you need to have some kind of knowledge so that you understand it. If you're completely blind, you cannot go in there completely blind and just trust that the other person's doing it right. So you need to have that. As the business grows, that's when you start like thinking at like, okay, well, maybe my thing should be just strategy. But you still have an understanding. Now, the company overall, though, when you're starting, should always have a specialized kind of focus for whatever product or service they're offering. Right, so you could be selling like juice, but you're not going to sell 100 different types of juice. You're maybe going to sell three types of juices, and then all the stuff that is involved to sell those juices, you need to have an understanding of.
Yeah.
So it's both specialized and you're like a specialist in that you're specialized in only the juice, generalist in that you're trying to figure out how to get the operations running to be a very good specialist.
Yeah. I like that because as a CEO, naturally, you can't be a specialist in one thing. The CEO, the buck stops with you.
Yeah.
You're required to understand all of the different problems that the organization faces, all of the risks, the strategy, etc. But you want to be focused in your mission and your goal because that allows you and the entire organization to focus on one thing.
Yeah.
Right? So that's quite important, as you say. Yeah. It needs to have a singular focus, but you as a CEO, it's hard for you to just, focus on one thing. Yeah. You need to be a bit of a generalist. Last question before we wrap up. Just wanted to talk about, so what are really the benefits of being a specialist? And we talked about one of them. We said focus. It allows you to focus on one thing, become a master at something, and that's really good, especially as you progress in your career. Focus is a really good thing to have because then you really succeed at that one thing. You become a master at it. You become known for something. What do you think are the other benefits of being a specialist? I go into the medical field, right? Whenever you go to the doctor, you meet a generalist type of doctor, and then they refer to a specialist, right? And that's always beneficial because this person, if they're like, I don't know, they're a specialist in, your feet. They understand your feet just like better than anybody else, right? Yeah. And I think that type of specialty in the medical field is quite appreciated and important to have.
Yeah. So, wait, what was your question again?
What are the benefits of becoming a specialist?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, even with law, you need to be able to know the subject enough to make intelligent decisions, right? So if it's like real estate law, you need to be able to know real estate well enough to make a good decision. And if you're starting off like first day on the job, you're not going to know anything. But then there's also after 3, 4, 5 years, how much more are you really learning?
Yeah.
Right. So that's the benefit of specialization is you get to know every single thing about one topic and you're really good at it. And chances are when you become really good at it, you're going to develop skills that you can actually bring into other fields as well. Because, for example, and I know we're short on time, but with real estate, you learn a lot. When you really understand the rules, you'll understand tactics and negotiations and communication, emails, letters, what you should be doing, understanding how to manage different stakeholders, getting buy-in from the people who should be making decisions, and understanding, and they should have understanding of why the course of action being taken should be that course of action. But now you can have that all under the context of real estate because you're super specialized. But chances are now I can go into other fields of law and use all of those transferable skills that I kind of acquired.
Yeah. And I was going to say, even with my accounting firm, it's sort of the same thing as well. I cater to startups and e-commerce businesses. That's very intentional. That was a very intentional decision because although, yes, I'm a generalist when it comes to addressing their accounting and tax issues, I am specializing in that vertical, in that industry. Yeah. So I've seen one startup face an issue and it's similar to other startups, et cetera, et cetera. So that allows you to, that specialization allows you to become a master at it and sort of use that as an advantage or as an edge where you can market and advertise your specialty in that. Any takeaways on this topic? Final takeaways?
I don't know. It's at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing, generalist or specialist, it's all about learning and having an open mind.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, same here as well.
Stay curious.
Yeah, stay curious, stay open-minded, you know. Being a generalist is very important, but learn that when it comes to driving an organization towards a specific objective and solving a particular problem, you want to be a specialist and focus.
Yeah, 100% agree.
All right. Well, that's it for this episode. Right. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Take care, guys.
Take care.